Rock and roll! Thanks for swinging by the shop again. Today, what's on the bench is a ESP M-II. This is one of the Real Japanese models, so pretty darn cool guitar. And it just came by the shop for a basically a setup. You know, it's there was something undefinable, not quite right about how he was playing or staying in tune. So we're just gonna try out a new pack of strings, maybe tweak the intonation, a little action height adjustment looks like it may be called for. And I guess let's get started. I know that I told y'all that I would show you in almost every video about tying those knots on the strings. If you're here hoping for another detail on tying the knots, yeah, this customer asked me not to tie those knots. Apparently they give him some difficulty getting the strings back off. So I'm gonna take that as a compliment. If he's got a hard time taking the strings off on purpose, you know they weren't slipping on accident. Done a bunch of work for this guy Rob over the years. I think his band may have some YouTube stuff. I'm sure they're all over Facebook. 9-Volt Junkies, may want to check that out. They're a cover band, but they do really good, well, in my opinion. And you should hear their singer belt out Scorpions tunes. So I guess even if I'm not going to tie the knots on the end over there, I can at least run you through this one more time, that the correct way to tighten these things on a Floyd Rose, in my opinion, is to use the short end of the torque arm, so that you have the sticking out like this with the long end sticking out and the short end sticking out, and then or sticking up. And then you get it just as tight as you can, white knuckle death grip tight with the short end of the torque arm, Allen wrench, whatever. And that makes it much more difficult to crack those little metal blocks in there. They can be cracked. Resist the temptation to take that Allen wrench out and use the longer part of the torque arm. That is a recipe for cracking these little blocks. It's a total pain trying to get the little blocks out of there, or having to replace the whole saddle assembly, possibly all 6 of them. So on this guy, since he asked me not to tie the locks, or not to tie the knots on the posts, we're just going to do them all like I usually do the wound strings, where the first wrap goes over and all the subsequent wraps go underneath. Alright, now let's see what we can get going on with the setup. Starting to get hot down here in Texas. When I'm stretching strings on a Floyd Rose, my trick that I like to do is to make this huge bend, like bigger than a bend that you would normally make while you're playing. And then while you got that held down, max out the bar. So you may max out the bar while you're playing, you may make a big bend while you're playing, but you're probably not going to do both. So when the strings are done stretching under this criteria here of a huge bend with the bar maxed out, then it doesn't matter if you got all the stretch out of the strings. You got all the stretch out of the strings that you would need to have out of it during the course of normal playing. Ultimately, it doesn't matter if you got all the stretch out of the strings. It just matters if the strings are going to stretch more while you play. So if you can exceed the tension of the highest tension you're ever going to play under, then you're golden. Action's probably like 3/64. Yeah, a little more than a millimeter. That seems like that should be pretty comfortable to me. See what the strobe says. Of course, you have to set the intonation on a Floyd Rose guitar before you lock it down, because the strings are going to be changing lengths if you make adjustments. That one's dead on. Neck adjust looks right. Intonation was pretty dead on. So before you lock down tremolos like this, you need to center up these fine tuner adjustments. Frequently I will find the center on these guys by taking one all the way to the bottom of its throw, raising one all the way up to the top of its throw, and then kind of setting one between them, like I just did A and G, A to its bottom, G to its top. Then kind of set D to halfway between those, and then just kind of center everything else or parallel everything else up with the one that you put in the center of its throw. Then tune with the big tuners again one more time. See how all those harmonics all line up like that? That's usually an indication on the strobe that your intonation is dead on. Don't fight with it trying to get it to where the strobe will indicate like that. Just know when you see that on the strobe that probably everything is good. Okay, so all the little fine tuners centered up. Dump the bar down, tune it again, lock it down. This one here, you can use the long bar of the torque arm. You still don't need to get crazy tight with it, but there's more threads here on more substantial pieces. It's less likely to cause a problem just because you have so much torque available. Okay, locked down. Now tune one more time. Frequently, locking it sends everything sharp. So knowing that locking it's going to send everything a little sharp, you might want to recenter, or you may want to center the fine tuners a little bit, favoring so that you can make everything a little bit more flat. So you see, it sent D pretty sharp, but G hardly moved sharp at all. Well, that went insanely well. Setup on this guitar is great. Didn't find much I could do to help it. Intonation was damn close. Guess let's plug her in and rip for a second. These EMGs are so high. That's my clean tone. Some overdrive. Oh, you should warm up before you try to shred. Well, I guess let's just clean it the rest of the way up. Call this puppy good. Oh, and you know how sometimes the back of your neck, when it's got finish on it, sometimes it feels like it's getting sticky and it doesn't slide. It's not real smooth. It feels sticky is usually the word people use. Man, I have found a lot of times that just a little bit of some kind of polish that's got a liquid wax in it, and yeah, now it feels all super slick again. So when you're cleaning the paint on your guitar, don't forget to clean all of the paint on your guitar. I guess we're pretty much done here. ESP M-II Japanese, the real guy, real deal, ready to rock. So thanks for swinging by the guitar shop, and rock and roll.